pressure. We'll
Yeah,
put it up on our YouTube channel, but I'm going to turn over controls to you and make you the host. And it is all yours, my friend.
Okay. Well, hello everybody. So happy to see so many people that have logged on. My name is Sarah Romesburg. I have not met many of you in person, but I'm glad to meet you over Zoom today. And I just want to thank you guys for coming to this little class about listings. I know listings are scare a lot of people, and a lot of people love listings and a lot of people hate listings, and I tend to be a person that loves working with sellers and loves doing listings. So hopefully we can kind of all brainstorm together today and learn some things, best practice, so that we all have successful listings that end with happy sellers. I think that's always the most important thing. So again, please bear with me. This is the first time I have ever done a Zoom call where I have been in charge. So I'm sure I'm not going to know how to do some things, but hopefully we'll figure it out. Let's see. Now, Chris, it says 2 people have entered the waiting room. Do I have to do anything when it says people are in the waiting room?
Yeah, just go in and
do I have to let them in, or do they just
go under participants, and you'll see them up there, and just hit admit.
Oh, okay. Okay. I think now everybody hopefully is all in.
Hey, Sarah. Hey, real quick, you're
now, one more question, Chris. How do I share my screen?
Hey, real quick, your feed is buffering really bad. I don't know if you have somebody else on in the internet in the house or what's going on.
I do not. I do not. Let me see if I can fix that. Is this better, or am I still buffering?
That seems to be a little bit better.
Okay.
So to share your screen, you look down.
Can you
What's that?
How to share the screen?
Down at the bottom of your screen, you should see a line that says mute stop video. You'll see mine is green. It says share screen.
Okay.
And then you will choose the screen that you want to choose, that you want to share.
Hey, Sarah, do you have your mobile device on as well as your laptop? It might be bouncing sound back from that.
Say that one more time, Paula.
Do you have your mobile device and your computer on Zoom at the same time?
I do not.
Okay.
Just my computer.
Sarah, do you have your phone connected to your Wi-Fi?
Yes, that's a good idea. Let me disconnect that.
Is there anybody else with you?
Okay, this may be a little bit better. I disconnected my phone from my Wi-Fi. Nobody else is on the Wi-Fi, so hopefully if I disconnect my phone, that will be better. Is that better?
Much, much, much better.
Okay, yay! Thank you, thank you. Again, this is my first
It's
first Zoom experience, so bear with me. I promise it will just get better from here. So to start our class today, does anybody, before we get started, does anybody really dislike working with sellers, dislike listings? When they think about real estate deals, listings are their least favorite thing. Is that anybody? Yes, no, lots of people. Okay, some people really dislike working with listings. So I hope today we're going to learn tools that will make us a little bit more comfortable. I'm going to share the screen, and what we're going to do is I made a little PowerPoint, so we'll go page at a time, and then we'll stop and break out and have some conference once we get to that part. Okay, see my screen? Can somebody just say yes or no if you can you see it? Okay. And so this Zoom is going to just teach us how to have a successful home sale. My definition of a successful home sale is, number one, that the house actually sells. That's the most important thing. Listings are a lot of work, and when you put in a lot of work and the listing does not actually sell, or the sellers choose to terminate and not sell their home, it's very discouraging. So that's the thing that makes it the most successful. The next thing that makes it successful is that your sellers in the transaction, and they are happy. They are happy with the process. They are happy with me as an agent. They don't feel like they left money sitting on the table. They don't feel like they had to concede more than the other party. And they were happy with my performance in the real estate transaction.
Sarah,
Before the listing appointment, there are lots of things that you can do as an agent, just so when you show up, you are the expert. That's your goal. You want to be the expert on the market. You want to be the expert on the house. You want to be the expert on the neighborhood. And these are some of the things, before you even show up to a listing appointment, you should pull and you should become familiar with. Most importantly is the deed. So I'm going to flip back now.
Darren's doing that.
So, like I said, most importantly is the deed. I'm going to tell a quick little story about something that happened to me, and I'm sure we all have issues and stories we could tell. Several years ago, I went to list a house that was a referral to me. I pulled the deed and saw that there was a lady's name on the deed, and that's who I had been in contact with, and that's who I was going to go see. So I showed up. I had never met her before. We went through the whole spiel. I asked all the correct questions, and I said, Joyce, I see you're the only one on the deed, so are you married? And Joyce said, no, ma'am, I am not married. I'm the only one that owns the house. I'm the only one on the deed. So check, check. We continued to go on. We listed the house. We got it under contract. And it turns out that Ms. Joyce was, in fact, still married. She was in the process of getting a divorce, but her divorce was not finalized yet. She had told me that she was not married. Her husband's name was not on the deed because she had purchased the house first. And, you know, I specifically said, are you married? And she said, no. So now, not only do I look at the deed, but I also ask the question, have you ever been married since you've owned the home? That did closed. That transaction did close, but there had to be lawyers involved, and the ex-husband had to show up and do lots of stuff. So now I make sure I've asked more pointed questions when we get to that part. So we need to pull the deed to know that who actually owns the home and who can sell it. It's always helpful to pull MLS sheets from previous sales. If it's a home that has sold multiple times, I always like to pull the past MLS sheets to see, you know, the price that it was listed for, the price that it sold for, just the pictures, so I know what I'm going into. If it's a home, obviously, that had never been sold, you don't have that piece. You always want to pull the property disclosures if it had been listed before, the previous property disclosures, tax records, septic permit, if it's a home that's on septic. I always like to see that said. The septic permit is for 3 bedrooms in the home. HO time, that's always good to have. And then, so you can talk price. That is a tool. If you go on to your, yes, this is a resource that I use all the time. And a couple people I had talked to did not know this service existed. So I just want to make sure everybody knows. It is down here, and it is called the Realtors Property Resource. Has anyone ever used this before? And again, it's on your Canopy homepage, My Matrix. You scroll down. It's called Realtors Property Resource. So if you click on this, it takes you to a service that Canopy provides to us as realtors. And this is my favorite CMA. This provides a very thorough detailers. They just get so happy about it. So let me just pull up a home I've done in the past.
Sarah, can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay, we can't see your screen. Are you sharing the screen with us, or are you just talking through it?
Hey, while we're paused, can I just jump on and ask everybody to mute themselves so it's not talking, because it makes feedback and it's really hard to hear.
Bring the screen with you. I thought I was. Let's see.
It's also, we're having a hard time with your feedback. So if you go a little slower, we can.
I'm sorry, guys. Okay, I will talk slower. Okay, I'm so sorry that this is not easy. I apologize for the buffering and the feedback. I don't know what else I can do about it at this point. Is that better if I talk slower?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay, thank you. And again, I'm sorry about that. So like I was saying, the Realtor Property Resource. Let me share my screen with you again, since that first time did not work. Okay, let me back out of this. On your Matrix website, so if you log into your Matrix, you scroll down and look at these realtor tools. There are lots of good tools down here that I use all the time, and I think some people don't use any of these things. So the Realtor Property Resource is the tool that I use to get the best comp report for my sellers. You click that button, Realtor Property Resource, and it takes you to a link where you can enter address. So I will just pull up an address I have done in the past for a listing. And you can see it is a comp report, but it is a very detailed comp report. It gives you the price valuation that, in my opinion, seems to be the most accurate. I know there are other CMA programs that you can use, but this Realty Property Resource number always seems to be the most accurate, in my opinion. You can create reports. You can see history of the property. You can see comps on here. You can also create a report. This is what I like to do for my sellers. You create a property report, a seller's report, a mini property report. So I'm going to click on this seller's report, which is what I do most often. And then you can see it's going to include all these things. This is going to be about a 30-page document when I get done with it. It's going to have all of the comps. It's going to have neighborhood information. It's going to have active sales, closed sales, market activity. It just has a lot of data. And in my experience, sellers love to see the things in this report. So you can scroll down and say run report. It takes a couple minutes to do. This one says it takes 9 minutes. So we'll come back. I'll get a notification when this pops up, but I'll show you what it looks like. This is a resource that everybody needs to be using if they're not. Sellers really like it. And again, it's on Matrix homepage, and it is called Realtors Property Resource. And so that's what you click in. You can enter your address and go from there. This is something I like to do before I go to a listing appointment. I also like to, on this page, do a SAM report. SAM reports are a little bit more popular, but it's on the same tool sheet, and it's called Statistical Analysis Module. So click on that. You are able to get reports on counties, neighborhoods, subdivisions, all entire zip codes. You can do lots of different things. So up here, I'm going to do a, let's see, I'm going to do a zip code. So if I want to do 28115, which is a Mooresville zip code, then I can see down here the average price per square foot. Right now it says it's $124 in 28115. I can see the average days on market, which is something good for listings. 14 days on market is the average number for 28115. I can see the average shows per listing. So the average number of people who make an appointment on a listing is 7.4. I can also see the average days on market before it goes under contract. This one's 14 days on market. This tool is such a great thing to do before you meet with sellers, because they are going to want to know, how long do you think it will be before I get an offer? You know, average price per square foot I can see for this zip code, 124. The amounts of supply, so how much month supply is there for this zip code? 2.2 months supply. This is just a great resource that is free for us through our Canopy membership. And again, you can do it for a subdivision. So if you had a specific subdivision in mind, let's see here, I've got a house, Oaks on Main in Mooresville. You can do it specifically for the neighborhood. So in Oaks on Main in Mooresville, the average days on market for a listing is 6. These are great tools. And again, you can print these documents out. These are great tools to have before you go to a listing appointment. Has anyone ever used any resources before? No, yes, no. Does anyone have any questions before we keep going? Okay, so those are things I want to do before I even get to a listing. to do my research, do my due diligence, make sure I have all the deeds and documents, and then when I show up, I know what I'm talking about for the house, for the neighborhood, and for the sellers. I'm not going to lie, most of the listing appointments I go on personally, I already have the listing. I primarily just do referral-based business and past clients, and so most often when a seller calls me, they are going to use me for the transaction. So I would say 90% of the time I don't have the pressure of trying to sell myself, but you still want to know what you're talking about when you show up for the listing appointment. When you actually go to the listing appointment, the things that you want to bring are all the documents we just talked about. You want to have comps for your sellers. You want to be able to show them that seller report. You want to bring a copy of the residential property disclosure and the mineral oil and gas rights disclosure, and leave with them. Those are, in my opinion, easier to fill out in person rather than electronically. So you want to take a copy of those things to leave with your sellers. I always like to take something for the sellers if I know they have children or if I know they have pets. If they have children, I always bring notebook paper and crayons or a coloring book. And then when I show up at the listing appointment, I have the children, of course, depending on age, but I have the children draw a picture of their house. And I say, draw a picture of your house so I can show people who want to live here next. Or make a list of the top 10 things you like most about your house. And then again, if I know they have pets, I always like to bring a little dog toy or treat, something like that, just to make the sellers know, you know, that I know them, I care about them, and that I want everybody to be involved. So that's just a tip that always goes over well. You also want to bring to the listing appointment a checklist. How many people, let me go out here. How many people have a checklist, an actual physical document that they bring to a listing appointment? Does anybody have something like that? Okay, I see a couple hands raised that they have an actual document. I cannot tell you how helpful that is when you are at an appointment and you can actually check things off, write things down, and of course, the things I'm talking about are, you know, heating and cooling source, condition of appliances, if the hot water heater is gas or electric, number of bedrooms, types of flooring, all of the questions that MLS will ask you when you are inputting, you can visually look when you are at the home and when you get your sellers to give you a tour. Those are things that, unless you see it in front of you, you might forget to look at, but when you have a checklist, it's easier to remember to check on those things. Sellers sometimes do not know the answers to some of the questions that you need. You know, the property disclosure asks them all kinds of questions, and sellers sometimes do not know the answer to those questions. Sellers do need to know the answers to the big questions. What kind of heating? What kind of cooling? Is there a hot water heater, gas or electric? Is there dryer hookup, gas or electric? Is there a propane tank? If so, is it leased? Do they own it? Questions like that are things that as an agent, we cannot disclose incorrectly to the people, to the buyers and other agents. So we need to make sure that we are asking our sellers those questions, and that with our own eyes, if they say it's a heat pump or it's a, you know, we use propane gas to heat the house, but you do not see a propane tank anywhere, you need to know those things and check those things while you are at the house. Does anyone have any questions before we keep going?
Yes, I do.
Okay.
How about, like you said, the seller don't know that information. And myself, I don't know about that information, or I don't know how to see the difference between gas or electrical. Where do you go? What do you do? Who do you ask to?
If a seller does not know a big piece of information like that, like what is their heating source, they are going to have to find out. You're going to have to say, you need to call your electric company provider, or you need to find your manuals for your house, and you need to know if this is heated by electric, gas. The big questions sellers usually do know the answer to. Smaller things, like on the residential property disclosure, it asks what type of pipes. There's one question that sellers never know the answer to, and it's about the type of pipes, plumbing pipes in their house. I don't know if y'all remember that question or not. Things like that, little things, if they don't know, you can put no representation on, or instruct them to put no representation. But the big things, you have to know those things, because you can't enter it into the MLS unless you have answers for that. You have to say what the heating source is, the cooling source. So those are things that would have to be found out before you could even make it active on the MLS. Does anyone else have any questions?
Hey, I would like to add to that. Guys, I just want to make sure everyone knows, on that residential property disclosure, as agents, we cannot fill out anything on behalf of a seller. Even if the seller is like, yeah, it's gas, you cannot check anything on there. That's the form that nothing can be filled in except the address and their name by the agent. So just please make sure no one is checking those items. So that's why it's so important for that one to not be filled out electronically, because then it would be hard to prove who actually filled that out.
Yes, thank you, Paula. And Amy just sent a note and said she often asks her sellers to look at their utility bill, and that they can know the heating source when they look at their utility bill. That's also something I like to do. And honestly, I like to see a copy of that bill too, just so I can know, is sewer included? Is water included? Is your trash included with your utilities? What things are included and what things are not included in your bills that you pay. So that's a great tip also. While we're on this topic, let me show you another thing on .loop. Since Paula just talked, it reminded me about this. I'm going to share the screen again. Okay, so if you are in .loop, you know that we have a checklist. So let me show you. If I go to templates, I can scroll down and I see well, maybe I missed it. There is one that says checklist right here. So if we click checklist and open this document up, this has everything that you are going to need paperwork wise, document wise, not only to list the property properly, but also to make sure you're in compliance. So you can see there's a listing checklist of all the things you need in your .loop. And there's also a buyer's checklist on the second page for everything you need for .loop. Lots of these things we've already mentioned: the deed, the septic permit, the tax records, the GIS map, if there's a survey, all of these things, the MLS form, and then of course all of your working with real estate agent, listing agreement, disclosures. But every single thing that you will need to make sure it is in compliance is on this checklist in your .loop. Another thing that we need to do on both the selling and buying end is the affiliated business disclosure. Again, that one just lets buyers and sellers know the relationship that we have with some of the companies, but that also needs to be signed and is one that sometimes gets forgotten. So just make sure when you are getting your paperwork together, you pull this up and you are checking off that you have all of these documents.
Sarah.
Another document in .loop that's very helpful, and Paula, you said that Jenna is the one who came up with this document. Is that correct?
Yes, that's correct.
Okay, the utility. So this is a new document, and again, I've got it in here already, but if you go to your templates and you scroll over to utility providers, this is a great tool for you to actually bring to your listing appointment also. And it asks some of the questions like we just talked about. So who is your power company? Who is your water company? Is your sewer city, county, septic? And then deeper with the septics, how many bedrooms do you have per county? I know that some counties are better about keeping records than other counties. Rowan County seems to be not so great about keeping records for a long time ago. So if you try to get a septic permit and the county does not have that septic permit on file, you just need to make sure you disclose that on MLS. So you say, this is a septic home being listed as 4 bedrooms. There was not a septic permit on file per Rowan County Office of Environmental Health. I always like to keep that email. I love doing everything in email, but I like to keep that email just so I could send it to the buyer's agent, so I could upload it to .loop to show that I tried to get a septic permit and there was not one on file. Again, this one has your fuel source. Do you have gas, electric? Is there an oil tank? If you have an oil tank, is it leased? Is it above ground? Is it below ground? What appliances run off gas? And then again, just the address and the names and signatures. So this form is a great form to have and fill out when you first meet with your sellers, because it answers these questions. And then they are signing off on the information at the bottom. At the end of the day, we don't live in these houses. They're not our houses, but it's our job to make sure we are asking the questions, getting the information, and making sure that information is right. Forms like this are great tools to make sure that we have that information and that we can advertise the home properly. So everybody definitely go into .loop and get this form, the utility form, and the checklist when you are working through your listings. Those are both in .loop.
Sarah.
Yes.
When you go into .loop, when that first form, when you first came in and it populated it, if you highlight what agent you are, you can have those signatures autofill for your signature.
Okay. Okay, great.
But if you go in and you sign yourself as the listing agent or the buying agent to the loop, when you go into that listing checklist, it asks you what agent you are. And if you say you're the listing agent, then it will autofill or auto assign your initials to all of those fields. And you just have to go in and sign it.
Awesome. Yeah, that will definitely save some time. Thank you. Awesome. Does anyone have any other questions before we keep bopping along? China?
The copy of the deed, is that after the house being recorded, or is that the previous deed?
That is the deed currently. So when you go to list a house, you are getting the current deed, and that current deed tells you the current owners of the home. So obviously you can't get a listing agreement signed by John and Jane Doe if John and Jane Doe are not the sellers on the deed for that property. You just want to make sure who you're talking with has authorization and ownership to actually sell the property. So it'll be the current deed. Okay, so then at the listing appointment, the biggest thing with a listing appointment is setting clear expectations and communication standards. So when I go to meet with people, I definitely like to go ahead and outline, these are some things that could happen along the way that would cause issues. These are some bad things that can happen. So then when we go under contract and the buyers back out, I have before told them there are some risks. When you are a seller listing your home, there are some risks involved. I like to kind of go over gloom and doom situations. And then again, most of the time those things do not happen, but I like to go ahead and include my sellers in those conversations about what potentially could happen. The biggest thing at a listing appointment is you want your sellers to feel that they can trust you. You want your sellers to feel that you are the expert on the market and their home. And you want your sellers to feel like you will have their back in this process. Many of us have probably sold homes in the past, and you know it is probably one of the most stressful things you go through as a person when you are selling a home. So you want your sellers to know your job is to manage the stress of the situation, do your best to make sure the buyers are the right buyers that are going to close on the house. And the way to do that is just have those conversations. You want them to feel like you have their back at all times. Let me go back to my PowerPoint. So you can see down here at the bottom of the page, I have let them see why you are a 3% agent. I know these days 3% is something that we see less and less of when it comes to commission. And when you meet with your sellers, you're going to have the commission conversation. That's your responsibility to tell them, you know, what the commission split is, what part goes to you, what part will go to the buyer's agent. And you want them to understand why you are a full 3% agent. That's my job. I'm not a 2.5% agent. I'm definitely not a 2% agent. The things that I bring to the table are 3%. And I want them to see my value, appreciate my value, and understand why I'm going to bring more to the table than somebody else might. And again, if you cut your commission, no judgment. I cut my commission if a person is listing with me and they turn around and buy a home with me. Also, I do 2.5% commission on the listing side to give them that break. But you know, don't be intimidated. You are the expert in the room on real estate. And that is something that you need to remember when you talk to sellers. You're the expert. Show them why you are a 3% agent. In this market, especially if you list a house, it could very quickly go under contract within a day or two. I know some sellers struggle with the fact of, well, she just put the house on the market and a day later we had 5 offers and we're under contract. What did she do? How did she earn her 3%? And that's something I don't want my sellers to think. I want them to know what I have done and everything that goes into it. So just don't be intimidated and just always remember you're the expert in the room. But make sure on the other hand of that, make sure you are the expert. Make sure you've done your work leading up to the listing, that you are the expert. when you have the listing appointment and it's over and you are getting ready to list, this is where you're going to do some of the legwork. You're going to have to get pictures made. You're going to have to get a measurer out to the home to measure the property, or do it yourself. I know some people do that themselves. I usually hire somebody to do it. You are going to want to share all the listing paperwork with the sellers. When I meet with them the first time, I give them copies of all the listing paperwork, but I wait and sign everything electronically just for convenience, and you know, it's more convenient to do that. I always send an email that explains all of the paperwork that they are signing, and then again, once it's signed, I send them another email with executed copies of all the documents for their records. When you go to use your home photographer, that is a great time to go back to the house and talk to your sellers about showing time, how showing time works. What would they like to set up their restrictions as? How much of a lead time do they need? What the house should look like when you have showings. I always wait and do that stuff when I am there with the photographer taking pictures. And that seems to work out well. But again, you need to go over those things, and you need to tell your sellers how the house should look for showings. And of course, do that nicely and not offensively. But sometimes sellers have never sold a home before, or they've never looked at a home before. So you need to let them know, don't leave your dirty underwear out on the bed. Don't leave the dogs home for showings. Make sure you didn't cook curry for dinner right before you have a showing come in. These are things that buyers, once a buyer walks into a home and they see those things, it's hard to unsee those things for a buyer. Buyers sometimes cannot look past clutter. They cannot look past things being dirty or unkempt. So when you are talking to your sellers about what their house should look like for a showing, just make sure you nicely set those expectations so that they know what to expect. Does anyone have any questions? Okay. The most important thing then comes when you actually list the home. And again, everything we've talked about, the checklist, the documents, all the things that you have done to this point are going to help you enter the listing on MLS. At that point, you are live. At that point, you can start your marketing, your advertising. It's always a good idea to shoot your BIC, a copy of your advertising or your marketing, just to make sure you're in compliance, that you have the firm name, your phone number if you need it, you know, you're not using words that you're not supposed to use. So that's always a good idea to do that, just to make sure you're in compliance with advertising and marketing. I know that social media is the biggest way that people market listings these days. Instagram, Facebook, all the things. That's how people see houses. That's how people market houses. And so sellers sometimes want to know what you will do to market their home, and you need to make sure you have a plan of things you have done in the past. I personally use Tour Factory. I don't know if anyone has used Tour Factory before. Let me show you what that looks like. Tour Factory is a great company that, let's see, where are you? There you are. Tour. So this company takes pictures. You can schedule the pictures, but they also put together little visual tours, and you can see, here's the current listing. You have a video of your listing that you can market, a branded version and an unbranded version. And then also you can see the statistics. So if up here, I can summary, and then I can see, let's see, how many times it's been seen. Maybe that's not on this page, but I can see the number of times this link has been opened. I can see where the link is being opened from. Are more people opening it from Instagram, or more people opening it from Facebook, or more people opening it from Zillow where they see it online. So I personally use Tour Factory. I find it to be a good, let's see, reports. That might be where it's at. I find it to be a good tool to use. A weekly sellers report that you can email out to your sellers. And so this shows them how many times it's been seen. Again, all of the things that I just said. Tour Factory is just a good resource that I personally like to use. When you actually list your property and get an offer, you need to remember, let me go back to this. You need to remember that the best offer is not necessarily the highest offer. I think that we all know, if we have listed homes for a good amount of time, that sometimes if it looks too good to be true on paper, it is too good to be true on paper. And we need to make sure that we are choosing the best, that page. We are choosing the best offer for our sellers. So if we know that our seller's main goal is to close quickly, we need to keep that in mind when we are talking to them about offers. If their number one objective is to make the most money, we need to keep that in mind. Something we also need to keep in mind is make sure you are only communicating to the other agents or buyers what your sellers have authorized you to communicate. So quite often I get this question as a listing agent from a buyer's agent. Why are they moving? Why do they want to sell? This house is beautiful. Why are they moving? That's a question that, unless your sellers have told you you can share that information, is none of the other side's business. So you don't just say, oh, well, they're moving to South Carolina, they're going to live at the beach, or, you know, they have to sell quickly because they got a new job. Those are pieces of information that you don't need to share unless your sellers have told you you could share. Your number one job is to protect your sellers. And that's something you always, of course, you have to disclose things that are pertinent to both sides, but your job is to protect your sellers and to make sure that you are not oversharing things that you should not share. A seller net sheet is something I always do for each offer that comes in also. So when an offer comes in, I always do a new seller net sheet for my clients. Before I even send over the offer, I do a seller net sheet so they can see, here are the terms of this offer, and here is the offer in hand. I love seller net sheets. They're one of my favorite things to do for sellers. I love the numbers. I like how they can see everything. So that is a resource that I encourage you to use also if you have not used that before. After you are under contract, I say that this is when I earn my commission. When I am under contract on a house is when I earn my commission. We all know how stressful that can be. You're going to deal with negotiations. You're going to deal with appraisals. You're going to deal with lending issues potentially. There are lots of things that come up from contract to close. I always send my sellers an email as soon as we go under contract, and it's called Contract to Close. I step by step tell them everything that will happen. The buyers are going to schedule an inspection. The buyer's lender will have an appraisal. The closing attorney will need your payoff information. You know, all the things that are going to happen and who does each step. I just really like to communicate. I like to make sure my sellers know everything that's going on and that their mind is right for any issues that might come up, especially inspections and negotiation papers. That's always a stressful time for sellers when they get an inspection and say, these are all the things that are the matter with your house, and we want you to fix all these things. So you just have to make sure you communicate, you outline what's going to happen, and then you let them know that your job is to get their house closed, get the most money in their pocket for them, and to make sure that everyone is happy and that the transaction closes. And as long as you keep those goals in mind, usually everybody else will jump on board too. I have found when I am stressed as an agent, my sellers are stressed, the buyer's agent is stressed, the buyers are stressed. But when I am calm, even in situations that are not calm, other people kind of jump off your emotions. I don't know if you guys have children, but they say the mom's tone sets the tone for the house. And I kind of believe that with the listing agent in a transaction, that the listing agent's tone sets the tone. If you are calm, respectful to everybody involved, then it usually works a lot better than if you are not. So I always try to keep that in mind. Does anyone have any questions now? I just talk.
I will say something.
Okay.
When we are adding the listing to the MLS, there are few fields that won't pass if seller check up no representation on the property disclosure, like what you said, the gas and the electricity. So if they choose no representation, then I go to type it in the MLS, it won't pass. It won't let me keep going.
Right. Those things they have to know. And like I think Amy mentioned, their utility bill is a great place to know if their heat is electric or gas. So the big ticket things, they are going to have to know, and they should. I mean, if you live in a home, you should know my heat is gas, my heat is electric. And if you don't know, you can look at your power bill, and your power bill will be able to tell you those things. So you're right. You can't put no representation on MLS on those big things. And you want to make sure you're listing the house with what it actually has. So don't put, electric if you don't know. You have to know before you can list it.
I am dealing with my first listing, and it was a property that the seller has rented, never live on it, and she doesn't know. So that's why I'm asking all these questions.
Yeah, I would advise you to ask your seller for a copy of their utility bill. So whoever they pay their bill to, if it's Duke Energy or lots of cities have their own power, who they pay their utility bills to, I would ask for a copy of those, and then you'll be able to get the answers from those utility providers. That's good. Does anyone else have another question?
Sarah, this is Richard Wilson. You marked that you use someone to measure the home. Why is that?
That's a good question. I have measured homes before myself, and I do not enjoy it. And I kind of am a firm believer personally that if I'm not very good at something, I should let somebody who is very good at it do it, like with photography or measuring the home. So I have a guy that he's usually $45 is what he charges to measure the home. For me personally, that's worth it. It's something I don't have to worry about. He also provides me a detailed floor plan and square footage measurement map that I can upload to MLS and use as my as confirmation of what I'm listing the home as, square footage. So that is personal preference. If you are going to measure the home, though, you need to make sure you know what you're doing. We have the right to do lots of things, but sometimes we're not qualified to do those things. So just make sure if you are going to do it, you know what you're doing, you know how to draw it out, and you know, you're good to go. So I'm jealous of those people who do enjoy doing that, but that's not me. And
Okay.
I'll send you the guy that I use if anybody's interested. He does a
I
great
would be,
job. So
I would be interested. I would definitely want to hear about it. Yeah.
yeah, that's worth $45 to me.
Sounds good to me.
Yeah. Does anyone else have any questions? I do have several resources that I would like to email out to everybody. So I'm going to get everyone who's on the Zoom calls emails. I'll look on who's on here and get your emails. And I'm going to email out my checklist, my housing checklist that I use when I go to a listing. I'm going to email you guys a copy of the contract to close email that I send. I'm going to email you a couple other things I had in PDF form that I want to send out to everybody. So I'll also include the home measurer and his contact information in that email. One more thing I thought of, I know we're running out of time, but one more thing I thought of that I do that people seem to really enjoy, or sellers enjoy, when I show up for the listing appointment, I bring in their folder some professional references, names and numbers of some of my past clients that I have obviously asked if I could put their info down. But I say, I can sit here and talk about how good I am or how good of a job I'm going to do. But if you would like to reach out to some of my previous clients, here are some in this folder. They would love to speak to you, answer any questions that you have. And again, I have 4 people on my list that I have asked if they mind, and they do not mind. And so I have had sellers reach out to those past clients before. And so it just speaks to your confidence when you can say, don't take my word for it, take a past client's word for it. And so if you feel comfortable asking any of your past clients to be that person for you, where if someone wanted to call, they would answer the phone and answer questions, I have found that to be a good resource for sellers. Most of the time they do not call, but I have had a couple times where they do. So it's just another good service to offer.
Question. On the affiliated business, I've noticed that NIP law has been removed. Are they supposed to be on there since we share the office with them in the Kannapolis office, or is it okay for them to be removed?
I can answer that. They rent a space, so therefore they do not have to be listed on that vendor form.
Okay, thanks.
You're welcome.
And definitely, guys, when you're in doubt, ask Dina or Chris or Paula, just ask somebody. There are so many people who want to help. And if you have a question about a form, or you have a question about when you go into, before you go to a listing, like getting a proper CMA done, let me show you that CMA, what it looks like real quick. It should be done. And Chris, I know we're only, so this, so my report is ready. That report that I ran earlier. You click up here, so you see your report. Well, where did it go? There it is. Download my report. So I'm going to download this report. And again, this is the Realtor Property Resource from your Matrix tab. But you get this beautiful document. And again, this one you can see here, 69 pages long. So you can definitely tweak it and not include everything. But down you go, it has a map. It gives the last sold price. It gives the current estimated value. The confidence on this one is a 5-star confidence, so that one's pretty good. It tells all the details of the house, square footage, lot size. It just has so much good information in it. And the schools, sellers really appreciate this document. And in my opinion, this is so much better than the CMA that you just get from Matrix. So again, when you're looking at Matrix, you go to Realtor Tools, and this is the Realtor Property Resource tab is where I download this document.
Hey, Sarah, I wanted to get your opinion on something. When you pull that report for your sellers for a listing presentation, there's a value to the left, and then there's a range. So how do you explain that to your seller? Because of course, I think that range went up to 303. So if they're like, well, I want it listed at 303.
So the range, what I don't, my question does ask, let me back up to that part. So range comes into more of a play when the confidence score is lower. So on this one, there's 5-star confidence. It's in a neighborhood. Neighborhoods are usually a lot more precise with their confidence scores. But if this was like a home in the middle of acreage, in the middle of nowhere, there might be only 2 or 3-star confidence. The range comes more into play, in my opinion, then. So I tell my sellers, this range is saying, you know, the most that it could ever sell for if it was in pristine condition, like brand new home, would be 308. This is saying. The lowest value here is 278. Most of the time, we're not going into homes that are in pristine, brand new condition. I mean, a lot of the times, you know, they're in nice condition. But I would tell my sellers, you know, at this price, you are going to potentially sit on the market a little bit longer. You're probably going to drop it a little lower anyway, because what the market is telling me is it's not worth that much. And so I would pull solds in that neighborhood. I would go back and pull listings and make sure that they see, you know, this is what this sold for, this is what this sold for. So yes, we have this range, but we're focused in on this number, and the confidence of that is pretty high. And again, I like to use price per square foot, the SAM report, price per square foot, when I narrow down price also.
So you use the number that's to the left, that's all by itself to the left. The, what is it, RVM? I think that's what it's called, RVA maybe?
This one, let me share it again. I use, yes, this number, the current estimated value is basically my base when I go in. Again, I go back and look at price per square foot for the neighborhood, look at the recent solds in the neighborhood. But when the confidence score is high, like it is on this house, this is the number that I'm going to you know, start with when I think about price. Again, if the house is trashed and it needs new carpet and it needs new appliances and it needs this, that, and the other, then I'm going to look down to this part of the range. If the house is like brand new, looks like nobody's ever lived here, nothing's been touched, nothing, no, you know, perfect condition, I might look towards the top part of the range. But just kind of an average, people have been living in this house and it's not brand new. This big middle number is what I usually go off of.
Sarah, Rick Wilson again. Getting back to the reports for a moment, you mentioned that report was 69 pages. Now, I'm not real familiar with RPRs. I glanced at it once long ago, but I gather you can kind of pick and choose what reports or pages you want in this. Is that correct?
You can. So if you go back to the document before I print it, so I collected seller's report. Well, down here, let's see, more details. All of these things that are checked are in the report. So if I don't want some stuff in here, like I don't want, you know, about RPM, seller proceeds, expired listings, distressed properties, if I don't want market health charts and comparisons, I'm just going to unclick all this stuff. If I don't want mortgage records, the property photos. So you can go in and click and unclick all the things that you want and then make your report. So again, you could make your report only be 3 pages long, 2 pages long as you want it. There's also a mini property report. So this one you can see is only about 16 pages, a mini property report. And again, you can click and unclick anything that you want or do not want included. Any other questions? Well, I am sorry that we had technological difficulties and that I was hard to understand and hear for some people. I apologize for that, and thank y'all for being my guinea pigs with this first little Zoom class. I do much better in real life person than on computer, so hopefully we can get back to real life classes soon. But like I said, I've got everyone who was on the Zoom meetings info, and by the end of the day today, I will have an email out to all of you guys. I know some people had sent little chat questions, and I will answer all those questions and get an email out with lots of resources that I personally use. Just remember, you're the expert. Don't be intimidated. The more you know, the better you will be. And don't be afraid to ask questions when you don't know the answer to something. Don't make it up. Find the correct answer. And if you do some of your work leading up to a listing, listing a lot of work in the beginning, but in my experience, then you can be, you know, you can be at the beach and get a house under contract if it's your listing. So you do have to do a lot of work, but in my opinion, I like working with the flexibility and just I like numbers and details and all those things. So let me know if anyone has any questions, and just watch for that email to come out by the end of the day today.
Thanks, Sarah.
Thank you, guys.
Thank you, Sarah.
You're welcome. Thank you.
Thank you.